Hey guys, I wanted to look at policies that were all evolved around suicide prevention. And I came across a study that I thought was pretty intriguing that associated the adolescent suicide attempt rates with same sex marriage policies. So a little background, we all know over the past couple of years, same-sex marriage policies have drastically changed between states and now the nation. There was 4 Supreme Court cases that were going to be heard at the same time that revolved around same-sex marriage, and these findings in these cases are what legalized same-sex marriage for the United States in 2015. But prior to these cases, same-sex marriage policies were in 38 states. And I think it's important to note that suicide is the second leading cause of death for adolescents in the United States. And these rates are even elevated more so for adolescents in the sexual minority. This study was to, like I said, evaluate the association between state same-sex marriage policies and adolescent suicide attempts. I thought it was pretty cool that they used a difference in difference analysis and linear regression. So when I'm trying to report the data, I hope I can explain it clearly enough, because this is what we talked about in class a couple times. So the study used the state-level youth risk behavior surveillance system, the YRBSS, that we looked at a couple times in class. I think the number was 762,000, around 600 data and adolescents data was collected for this study. And the dates range from January 1st of 1999 to December 31st of 2015, so it's a long time. This study took place for a long time. Like I said, it used the difference in difference analysis, and what it did is it compared the changes in suicide attempts among all public high school students before and after the implementation of state policies revolved around same-sex marriage. And then it compared that to the year-on-year changes in suicide attempts among high school students in the 15 states without policies that permitted same-sex marriage. And then there was a linear regression that was used to control for state, age, sex, race, and ethnicity, and the year. I think it's also important to note that there's a secondary analysis among students who were sexual minorities, and this study included the interaction between adolescents who are willing to identify in the sexual minority within the states that have implemented same-sex marriage policies. The results, this is figure 1. I think it's important to note that wave 1 are the states that implemented same-sex policies before 2013, and wave 2 are the states that implemented same-sex marriages policies in 2013 or 14. The reason I put this on there is because I think it's important to know, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. I think it's important to know that there was no significant trend. Like, the trends were flat and similar between wave 1 and wave 2, so there was no statistically significant findings that before implementation that the rates of suicide differed in these states. This is going to be hard. This is hard to read for your sake, but I hope I can do a okay job explaining it. This is table 2, and this is the changes in high school students' suicide attempts in states with same-sex marriage policies relative to the states without same-sex marriage policies. The net change in high school students reported suicide attempts after implementation of same-sex policies, like I said, against the states that didn't. Across all states before implementation of these policies, it was a weighted 8.6% of all high school students, and 28.5% of students who were sexual minorities had reported at least one or more suicide attempts in the past year. Although high school students who were of the sexual minority only made up of 12.7% of the overall population of high school students, they accounted for 34.1% of reported one or more suicide attempts. Same-sex marriage was associated with a statistically significant decline in proportion of all students attempting suicide of 0.6 points, and that is within the 95% confidence interval. And then there was a percentage of 4.0 decline, a 4.0 percentage decline of all students who identified as a sexual minority reduction in suicide attempts. So overall, I think, and this is within the 95% confidence interval too. So overall, for the reduction of adolescent suicide attempts, it was like 7% in the analysis, which is a significant within the confidence interval that states that implemented these same-sex marriage policies had a reduction in adolescent suicide attempts. I think it's also important to note that there was limitations to this study, as in every study, and that the numbers represent different things, and the study could not control for factors that change over time that are associated with adolescent suicide rates, such as the youth's socioeconomic level, their religious affiliation, or the acceptance, just the cultural, societal acceptance of sexual minorities. So there's other things that go into play, but these are the numbers we have. And there was some findings on there that said same-sex marriage policies reduced adolescent suicide teen rates. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I hope y'all enjoyed.